So in talking about Iditarod, the one guy I didn't mention who I like this year actually is Ryan Reddington. You know, he didn't race himself the mid-distance races, the Bear Grease. He had Sarah Kefir. You know, I just had some kefir and some Cheerios, and it was delicious. The probiotic drink kefir, and his new girlfriend, wife, I'm not sure their relationship, but his partner with the dogs is this woman, Sarah Kefir, and she ran not as Ryan has a tendency, I think, to push too hard in those mid-distance races. And you know, with Sarah at the helm, and he had another guy around his second team there in the Bear Grease. You know, the dogs came in, Wildfire, who had been hit by the snow machine, looking great, looking happy with the Bear Grease this year, and they didn't get that real competitive push. In other words, there was quite a few dogs that finished, and they weren't super stressed in terms of going too fast, which is a tendency in mid-distance races for all competitors. But I think one of Ryan's weaknesses over the years is he gets a little too competitive and wants to win those races, and sometimes that you need to be conservative, you know, even in a Bear Grease, you know, out and back. But you know, and if you push too hard in those mid-distance races, sometimes you can lose Iditarod in the mid-distance season because you're taking too much out of the dogs. You know, there's a lot of factors, variables involved in that, but you know, just mentioning that. So this year, I don't think that happened. I think Ryan, if he's conservative in Iditarod this year, he goes out and you know runs like Kiefer and doesn't try to win the race in the first 300, 400, 500 miles, which is problematic because a lot of times you can win the race in the first half of the race if you get a lead, establish the lead, defend the lead, and maintain the lead up the coast and through the river. But we've seen it with Nick and some of these other guys. You know, they're coming in a Uniclete, then they're getting past a Uniclete, and the teams are leapfrogging them. They're, you know, the guys who led the first portion of the race to the Yukon River or led, you know, up the Yukon River across the portage from Caltech to Uniclete, but then they're getting passed by half a dozen teams or even more on that final stretch up the Bering Sea coast to Nome. So, you know, it's going to be interesting. I would love Ryan to do well. I think he's got, you know, he's got some kennel depth. 2 teams in the Bear Grease, a lot of good dogs. And, you know, I think it's going to be a question of him, you know, being patient, being conservative, and not taking too much too early out of the dogs in the race, and just you know staying on the drag, keeping the numbers of his team together. You know he wants 14 dogs all the way to Caltech. I think you know I would love to see Ryan come into Caltech, 14 dogs in Uniclete. If he's back 6th or 7th position, okay.